Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour. I am Kyle Anthony, your host. We're here. We have interviews, MMA banter, and betting advice. This week, UFC Vegas 85. We've got Nasruddin Nurmagomedov versus Roman Dolidze. We're going to talk three plays here like we always do on the show. And we're coming off a profitable UFC 297 2 weeks ago. We were off last week. It's the last time that we will not have UFC up until probably, I think it's like mid-April, that we're going to have just UFC events. So a lot of great action coming up for us, great spots to put our money in strong positions. So I'm excited about it. But we did hit for some profit last 2 weekends ago. We were this close to probably over about 10 units of profit for clients last week. Ended up being Mike Mallet, that motherfucker. Mike Mallet ended up just not getting to the bell, costed us a parlay, and did hurt us a little bit there when it comes to that part. But profit is profit. We will take it. We will move on to the next event. And that's what it's about, putting our money in strong positions and winning long term. Now, first things first, obviously, if you want to become a client, link down in the description. You will see Wagertalk. Click on it. You'll see the plays. You'll see the packages, and you'll see the offerings for daily, weekly, monthly, yearly packages for my plays and full breakdowns on every single play. And also, of course, if you want to get involved in the fantasy side of things, our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy Sports, there's a link down there. Go get your free $100, will you? First-time users can go on there, get $100 for free, and go play with it. And we got some things. We got Super Bowl coming up you can use it on, and any other sport, as well as, of course, MMA. So shout out to those good people over there. So with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Nasruddin Nurmagomedov and Roman Dolidze. Now, I've got a lot to say here. But we've got Nasruddin Nurmagomedov. He is minus 160. We've got Roman Dolidze in the comeback plus 130. Now, looking at these two guys here, you've got Nurmagomedov, who definitely is a well-rounded fighter overall. He's sharp, good on the feet. You've got on the other side, you've got Dolidze. He's a big-time finisher. He is good on the feet. He's got the power as well as this elite level submission ability. Now, that for me here, when I was breaking this fight down, that for me is really kind of the main thing here on the Dolidze side. I would say that pretty much all of his win equity is going to come with the finish. I don't really see this being anything that he's going to do over the 5 rounds, being able to outwork Nurmagomedov. There's a lot of those things there, but there is a high side there to that where he can really go out there. He can dictate the pace by pushing forward, throwing the big shots. And early, it is going to be scary for anybody who's going to be taking him off because Roman's going to be throwing those heavy shots, overhand shots, pushing forward with the pressure. And that has worked for him. He's been able to kind of take one to give one kind of attitude where he's so comfortable, throwing that big shot where he believes in his power. He believes also in his chin. He has shown to have a pretty solid chin overall, but he's looking to push forward, throw those big shots. And also the fact is that, Roman can also win when you kind of think he may be out of it or you kind of think that things aren't going his way. And one of the impressive wins for him was against Jack Hermansson, which when I was going back rewatching the fight, I mean, there are some bad takeaways from it, but there are also some good takeaways from it for Roman because, Roman was losing the fight. Roman was losing that fight. It was, I would say it was the end of that second round. I think up until that point, Roman was losing. And I think Hermansson was doing enough, staying more active, staying more busy, putting out the better shots. And all it took was one little slip up from Jack going for a takedown. And Roman, I mean, he is just incredible with his transitions on the ground. I mean, this guy gets to the ground and Hermansson is pretty solid when it comes to his grappling ability, and he just swept him, reversed him. I think even the first round he may have two, and they were able to kind of get back to their feet. But he ends up getting a calf slicer, getting from top position, which is incredible. Ends up pounding his face in. Fight gets called, and Hermansson was looking great up until he wasn't anymore. And that just shows the ability of Roman Dolidze and what he can do, where he can either have that big power that can change the fight, as well as the ability to look for those finishes on the ground. Now, the other part of this here is the big issue for me on the Dolidze side, and there's a couple, but the biggest one here, and this is something I'm not telling you guys that you don't know here, but is the grappling and the rest was actually not the grappling, is the wrestling and the takedowns of Dolidze. It's just his inability to either stick to the game plan of looking for takedowns or the fact that he just can't get them. And to me, that nullifies and kind of takes out one of the most lethal weapons that Dolidze has. And it's going to be the ground game. It's going to be the grappling. It's going to be utilizing some of that. And that has worked really well for him if he can get to the ground. And again, he can find those finishes, but he doesn't do it. Now, for me, the issue for me, a lot of people are saying, hey, he's just falling in love with his striking, or he's been knocking guys out and he's just so comfortable with being. I don't believe that. I believe he physically can't continue fueling those takedowns over a period of time. I think he has kind of given up on it. I think he knows that costs him his gas tank. I think if the opportunities to get to the ground, he's taking it. He's gonna be happy with it, whether he rocks a guy, gets the takedown, or his opponent, like Hermansson, looking to get into the clinch, looking to level change. That's where Dolidze is going to do some great work there, and he was able to do that. But I don't think he can do it. I basically don't think Roman can push that pace, look for, multiple takedowns. And if he doesn't get them, he will really gas out. Even with the Hermansson fight, it was, an active fight to some degree. And I mean, I would say by the second round, he was gassed. And then you even saw, excuse me. And then you even saw, which we're going to talk about the Vettori fight, a little bit of an interesting situation as there too. So, but I do think overall the cardio is going to be a problem, is going to be an issue for him. And that already is going to give you red flags. Where this is his first 5-round fight in the UFC. It's the first time he's had to do this. And again, we've seen his cardio tick down round 2 compared to, again, Imavov. I know people talk about his cardio and say that his cardio may not be that great. He went 5 rounds with Strickland. I mean, and say what you will about, how that fight went. He went 5 hard rounds with Sean Strickland with the pace, walking backwards. Roman's not doing that. Most fighters aren't doing that, just have that ability to push forward. And I thought, even though in a losing situation, I thought that Imavov did enough, looked good enough to at least show he can go 5 rounds, where I don't think there's a chance that Roman is going to win a fight over 5 rounds. I think it's got early equity for him, or it's going to be nothing. Now, if this plays out on the feet, I highly favor Imavov on the feet. He's got the sharper combinations, more weapons, great counter striking ability. I think that's really gonna fall into place for him. Where Dolidze's basic, and to be direct more on it, I think his striking is complete shit. I don't think it's good. I think that he, throws the same type of combinations over and over and over again. And he's just kind of hoping that one lands and one, kind of ends up changing the pace of the fight. And that, yes, it can happen. Of course it can happen. But against someone like Imavov, who I believe is really slick with his striking, a sharp shooter from the outside, he's got great kicks. He can mix it up a little bit. Also, his volume's better. Flat out, his volume is going to be better. He's going to push out a little bit more, or a lot more, I should say, over Roman, who Roman really is going to be throwing these big overhands. That's kind of all he does. I mean, if you go back and watch, that's almost all he does. And then you add in the fact he can't check leg kicks. He doesn't check leg kicks. He's a tough guy. He's been able to kind of take them and kind of move forward. But there's a point in a fight, whether it's a 5-rounder, whether it's other people, whoever, 3-round or whatever it is, they're going to start to tax you. They're going to start to hurt you a little bit. It's going to slow you down even more. And I think that's exactly where Imavov is going to look early, where he knows he doesn't have to worry about the level changes. Sometimes you're throwing these kicks, you got to worry about a guy who's going to grab your leg. I don't see that happening at all with Roman. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. So this is a spot where I do believe it's not a good situation for him. And then lastly is a competition level. We talk about Roman's power. Yes, he has some power. He does, but if you look at the guys that he's knocked out, I mean, Kyle Dawkins, I don't even think he's in the UFC, but he was on an 0-4 run. Phil Hawes, 1-4 run. All 4 were brutal knockouts. And he, a gust of wind can knock that guy over. Jack Hermansson fight, he was losing. And then he comes back and wins, but credit to him because that was a fantastic finish. And then the Marvin Vettori fight. Vettori is going to outstrike you, round by round. Marvin Vettori is got terrible striking overall. And, to me, this is a spot where I'm all over Nassourdine Imavov. I think he has the ability. He's got the striking. He's got the footwork, light on his feet, can work from the outside. And I think after that first round, Roman's, win probability, I think, just really plummets at that point. And I think at some point, whether it's later in the fight or the decision or whatever it may be, but I think that Imavov has the ability to get the job done. So I'm taking Nassourdine Imavov as my free play. I think I talked really fucking long on that one, didn't I? The next one we're going to be talking about here, I can't shut up on these things, guys. I really can't. Like, I struggle to not to just get the play out and move on. This is also why I don't do an entire full show, because my show would be like 4 hours long. But I find good spots that is worth talking about. You know, some people talk about, hey, here's a fight, here's a fight, here's a fight. Yeah, I'm taking the favorite minus 300. Well, you're probably not betting that. So we're looking for strong positions to place our money, and then that do make sure it's good. That do make sense. So the next one here we're going to talk about here is Gilbert Urbina versus Charles Radke. And you've got Urbina here. He is minus 210. You've got Radke plus 175. Now, looking at this fight here, you've got Urbina. He's a grappler. You know, he's the kind of guy that's going to push a pace, put good volume out there. And you've got Radke on their side here. He's another solid grappler, looking to wrestle, and also big power in his hands. But the one thing here I think that's pushed this line a little bit wider than it probably should be is the recency bias. I really think the recency bias is really important here when you look at it. You know, the last fight that Urbina had was against Kosi. And, you know, yes, he went out there. It was the best performance that probably Urbina has had in his career. He looked good. He did what he needed to do. He dominated, got that second round finish. And yes, that looks good. But if you really look at it, Kosi, you know, the Kosi brothers are like a fraud at this point. These guys have absolutely not looked good. You know, they're not MMA fighters. Maybe they got some wrestling credentials, but they're just not MMA fighters overall. He was able to once again beat these guys. It just didn't look good. And then you add in the fact, even prior to that fight, Kosi was talking about health issues, things outside the cage, all these things, and whatever it is, whether it's excuses, bullshit, not. Kosi looked terrible out there, looked out of shape, and yeah, he went out there and got the job done, so it looks good on paper. But then you also look at on the other side of Radke, you know, Radke fought Blood Diamond, which a lot of people kind of knock him for that because he didn't get the finish. He didn't finish him. He couldn't really get many takedowns. But to me, there's a lot of moving parts to that fight. And when you first look at it, it's going to be the fact that this fight took place in Sydney, Australia. This was like a 20-hour flight for Radke to get over there. Plus, you add in the fact that this was his UFC debut. Also add in the fact that he was fighting in enemy territory. And the fact that the time change, there was just layers and layers and layers of things that Radke had to really get over. And the fact that he ended up even getting the victory, I thought was a good sign. Regardless, if he went out there and flopped it, that's different. I thought he fought fought hard rounds, went out there and at least did enough and got the job done. So to me, that's a lot to take over, especially again in Australia, and it's your UFC debut when you've been a regional guy, your career. So I do think that that's an interesting part. And then you add in the fact that both of these guys are wrestlers, grapplers. They're going to look to get the takedowns. Urbina, I think, is going to be more relentless, looking for those takedowns, diving at legs, trying to get that control time, trying to do those things. But there's times where I've seen where Urbina just looks sloppy. There's times where he looks kind of sloppy, guys. He doesn't look good. He gets reversed. He gets pushed out of position, finds bottom all of a sudden. And a guy like Radke, who I believe is going to have that strength advantage, is going to have that ability to transition, reversal, all those things, cage push Urbina up against the fence. And I think those are things that are going to help him, as well as the fact that I think that he can offensively wrestle and get the takedowns, get some control time. So you add in those kinds of things. I think that the wrestling side that Urbina really, you think he may have that big advantage. I don't think it's that big of an advantage in this fight at all. Now, if this plays out on the feet, I think that there's issues there for Urbina as well too. He's extremely hittable. He's been knocked down by lesser guys, and Radke can crack, man. Radke has big power. He's got big hands overall. He throws big, heavy shots, and we've just seen that Urbina just doesn't absorb shots very well. And I think there's an opportunity there to have a game-changing shot where he can land the big shot, drop him, hurt him, finish him. I think the knockout is very live in this spot here for Radke. I think he can get that finish because I think some of his equity is going to be on that because, yes, there could be cardio concerns, possibly cardio concerns on both sides. But I think that Radke is going to have that ability to be the bigger, stronger power puncher, the more damaging shots coming from him. And I do like that because I think his boxing's better. I think just flat out his boxing is better. You do have Urbina, who will have that 3-inch reach advantage. But I do believe that Radke can go out there, land the nice shots, land the bigger shots. And again, I just think the recency bias is there where you think that, it looks great on paper and what he did and all these things. But everyone's so down on Radke because of this Blood Diamond performance. I'm not. I think this is the spot where this line is moving in the wrong direction. I know that there's been more money coming in on Urbina. I have not bet this yet, but I am definitely looking to take Radke here. I want to see where this line goes, but right now, plus 175, I think is absolutely worth it for a shot on a guy that I think can get that knockout and can get the job done. So I'm taking Charles Radke plus 175. And the last one we're going to go over real quickly here is going to be Randy Brown minus 260 versus Muslim Salikov. Now, the first thing here we got to talk about, obviously, is going to be the fact that, the age. You got the age. You got Muslim. He's 39 years old. You've got Randy Brown. He's 33 now. You got, Muslim coming off a loss to Nicholas Dalby. Didn't look that great. Dalby pushed the pace, was not able to stay with it. And it kind of looked, hey, is Muslim losing a step or two? Probably. The guy has got great striking. He's got great ability overall. But the one thing that I think really would make me worried about putting Randy Brown in parlays or any of those things is the simple fact that he makes every fight close. He makes every fight close. It's just unbelievable that this guy cannot really separate himself when there are fights that he has where, he really probably should. I mean, the most recent one, Wellington Turman, very, very close fight overall. He fought Francisco Trinaldo. Very, very close fight. Chaos Williams, split decision. I mean, some of these fights are fights where he's been a guy that's been like a fringe guy, a fringe top guy, trying to get into the those rankings, and he just can't seem to get there. And I think it's because I think some of those ability that, he can lean on that 8-inch reach advantage that he's going to have. But even with that, I think the age and the reach is something that has really kind of pushed this line and made it even more wide. I think the 39 years old, the 8-inch reach is going to be part of that. But I'm not that big that Randy even uses his reach that well. I think that he can be rangy at times. He can, throw out some nice kicks and keep that distance. But I think Salikov can cut that distance. I think he can move in tight. I think he can find opportunities. And I think the main opportunity that he's going to have, and it's a main problem for Brown, is going to be the leg kicks. Brown, it's the same thing kind of I was talking about with Dolidze, that he just doesn't check leg kicks because he's just throwing, he's boxing. And that, I'm not saying Brown just purely boxes, but those legs are always there when he's looking to throw out, the 1-2 combination. He's digging deep. He's heavy on that front leg. And I think a great kicking arsenal that we know that Muslim does have, even at 39 years old. I think if he can target the leg early, really chop at it, really slow down. We've seen Randy really struggle with checking leg kicks completely. I think that his arsenal of shots is going to be there. And that, to me, is if he can kind of utilize that and then mix in some wrestling and bank some rounds, I think that's a path for him. I really do. I think this line is very wide to me. This is a spot that I have not betted yet, but I am really looking at the Muslim Salikov side very, very closely here and kind of seeing where it goes. But I think that this line is too far. The sprinkle is definitely worth it on the Salikov side overall. And I think that, he can be possibly maybe the better minute winner and find opportunity to get a takedown, get some control time, and not have to totally gas himself, because I think Randy Brown can be taken down in this particular spot here. So I'm going to be taking Muslim Salikov here. I think it's worth a little sprinkle overall here at plus 210. So there you have it for UFC Vegas 85. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Also as well, Underdog Fantasy Sports, check that stuff out too. Let's see how we do, and let's keep this ball rolling. Let's keep cashing. I will see you next week, and we'll keep this train going. Let's cash.